What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of exciting and crazy news to cover this week, but before I get into the news, I first want to mention I'll be doing my usual weekly live stream on Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time, so join if you can. It's always a fun time hanging out and talking cars with all of you, and that will be also my last Sunday live stream. The following week I will be doing one, but it'll be on Saturday, and that'll be the final one of the year here to wind us out of the year. But anyway, moving into the news here this week. So first off, Honda has confirmed that the Prelude is coming to production and is coming to the United States here with an introduction late next year, they're saying. Along with that announcement here, they confirmed that it will advance the joy of driving into the electrified future with Honda's award-winning two-motor hybrid powertrain, and that it will also debut an innovative Honda S Plus shift feature designed to enhance the driving experience. They explain that it's a drive mode that further advances linear shift control to deliver maximum levels of driver engagement. And that's all they're officially saying for now. But, this is basically the same hybrid system that, we're already familiar with, with the other Honda hybrids. And that means it basically just uses a gas engine as a generator for the electric motors that kind of power the wheels there, at least until you get up to highway speeds in these vehicles. And so it sounds like this is basically just going to let you play around with those fake shift points that are already baked into the hybrid system. Whenever I do a full throttle acceleration in those cars, you hear it, it goes, it doesn't need to do that shift, but it does. So I think it's just letting you take over control of that. And so that's interesting. I'm glad they're seeing it. They were able to, do some kind of shifting in a hybrid, even if it isn't a real manual. And, going back to the actual CRZ, at least we have, something here, an attempt at least, and so there's also the way that it sounds like it works. We actually kind of heard it already because there was an early prototype drive by a Japanese YouTube car channel, a Strut Car Guy, and a few other Japanese journalists that were able to drive it. And so it appears to show exactly that. I will link the video in the description if you want to see their drive there. I don't speak Japanese, so I wasn't able to understand it, but just seeing the excitement behind the wheel and stuff seems like it should be, a fun little car. They also check out the rest of the car in their video, and when he hops in the back seat, you can clearly see that this Prelude will be a liftback, which hasn't been officially talked about or confirmed or even brought up, and so that's notable. The rest of the interior looks to be mostly the same as Civic, though, so nothing super unique there aside from the seats possibly being a little more sporty. And there's no info on how much horsepower it'll make, but I wouldn't expect much more than the 204 horsepower and 247 pound-feet of torque that you get in the Accord hybrid. I mean, maybe it'll be a tiny bit more, but, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the most you can expect. And in that first drive video, it seems to have similar levels of acceleration as well. So, it seems like it's, accelerating about as well as a Civic Hybrid, which is still fun, but nothing wild or anything. And other info that we get from a Japanese channel, Ride Now, is that it'll get dual axis steering for the front suspension system, that whole front component from the Civic Type R. It's getting that whole setup there. And also the Type R's adaptive dampers. So definitely don't expect this to cost as much as a Civic. The adaptive dampers and, that stuff in the front should, to me, that's making me expect like Integra kind of money for this. So, I'm hoping it's under 40 grand, but, it's solidly in the 30,000s for sure. I mean, even Civic Si is 30 grand these days. So bet on this thing being at least 35 to 40, maybe even it'll crest 40 for the top trim. We'll see. But they also say it'll have a shorter wheelbase in this YouTube video, shorter wheelbase than Civic. So handling might be a little bit more lively, but it does have wider tracks front and rear than the Civic, they say. So still plenty handling poise there, and that's all the info we have so far on it. So, it sounds like it won't be an all-out sports car, but it'll be a fun new sport compact, and it'll get probably 50 mpg like the Civic Hybrid does, which is great. And so to me, seeing even an affordable-ish, two-door, just a two-door, very few affordable two-doors these days. So happy to see that. I love sport compacts, being a kid of the 90s and the 2000s here. Happy to see those slowly coming back a little bit. It takes some bravery here to do that. And so I hope it's a big success for Honda. And, for people that were maybe wanting more out of this, keep in mind, this is the beginning of Prelude. Honda usually doesn't roll out their performance versions at the launch of a new product. So, I think we already have, a lot of the front suspension and steering from Type R. We have a lot of other stuff shared from Civic. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that we see a Prelude Type R someday, that just copy and paste the Type R powertrain and those other enhancements. I think that's be very easy to do. I think that's fairly likely, so if you're someone who's wanting more than, what this is going to provide, just sit tight, and that probably will be coming if I had to bet on it. And moving on here, though, the other big news here this week that also involves Honda are the new reports here that have been emerging, and it's been everyone's been talking about this past week about Nissan and Honda potentially merging, and Mitsubishi is supposedly coming along for the ride either immediately or possibly slightly later, but it could form this new automotive group here, essentially. And so Nikkei Asia was the first to report this, followed by hundreds and thousands of other people after that, but the report didn't cite any sources, and so there's nothing super confirmed. Now, Reuters did get one of the companies to confirm that they are exploring various possibilities for future collaboration, leveraging each other's strengths. And that is a non-answer because they already announced earlier this year, that they are going to develop and share electric vehicle platforms and software. They already announced that. That's what that handshake picture is from, when they already agreed to do that. So that statement just basically states what they stated, back in the summer. But the Wall Street Journal has an interesting twist in this story, though, with their sources familiar with the matter. So they're citing somebody here saying that the giant electronics maker Foxconn has been discussing acquiring Nissan. Primarily because they say they want the company's manufacturing and design capabilities to turn their own dreams of producing cars into a reality beyond just the concepts that they have shown in the past. And supposedly, when Nissan and Honda heard about this, Nissan did not want to be taken over by Foxconn. And so this accelerated the talks supposedly between Honda and Nissan. This is why something that maybe, Nissan said they had 12 to 14 months. Maybe they had some time to figure things out in 2025 before they, rushed into something. Now it seems like they're rushing into something to avoid, any kind of takeover here. And according to Reuters, Honda threatened to dissolve their partnership with Nissan if they were taken over by Foxconn. So also, like, double bad. Like, not only does Nissan probably not want to be taken over, but they also, don't want to lose this partnership they just made with Honda. And so also, Nissan, it sounds like they didn't want Foxconn to take over, saying that, according to this report, they declined to sell any equity to Foxconn. Foxconn came to them and said, hey, we'd like to take a stake in your company. And this makes sense because Nissan literally, or their anonymous, executives that talked to Automotive News a few weeks ago, said, everything was on the table, that, they're looking at every option, but they had 12 to 14 months to survive. Sounds like not every option was on the table, because then Foxconn's like, oh, sure, we'll give you some money. And then, like, actually, just kidding. We only want money from people that we want money from, not from just anybody. And it seems like that's kind of what's happening here, because apparently it's got the drama behind the scenes here. According, again, to this report, is that Nissan said, no, we're not selling any part of Nissan to Foxconn. So then anonymous insiders in this report here, supposedly they claim that Foxconn is still determined to get at least a piece of Nissan. So now they're supposedly talking with Renault, who does have 15% of Nissan, talking to Renault to try and get them to sell their stake to Foxconn. And Renault was already trying to kind of distance themselves from Nissan. It seems they were in this partnership, and, they've been working through that for several years here. But, it sounded like with these financial troubles Nissan had, that Renault was already talking about selling their stake in Nissan and trying to, get rid of that kind of connection. And so this will be interesting, is because clearly Nissan does not want any of them to be sold to Foxconn. But if they're not in control of that 15% and Renault wants to dump it anyway, what's going to convince Renault to not sell it to them? So the only solution would be if Honda comes in and bids higher than Foxconn and buys out that 15% and buys out the rest of Nissan and, completely takes over the entire thing. Does Honda have that kind of money? I don't know. I don't know the specifics enough to say if that's a realistic situation or not, but this would be very interesting to see how this unfolds here. And So according to Bloomberg, though, again, everyone getting their piece of the reporting pie here, they say that Honda is setting themselves up here essentially to be a white knight in the event of a hostile takeover attempt. So like it's really like coming down to like, I guess Nissan was cool with Honda, but nobody else apparently, at least not Foxconn. So kind of interesting that, usually beggars can't be choosers. And, I guess if Honda was game, and this is just accelerating this, maybe it'll work out here. I don't know, but I still just like, I don't know. I haven't heard a single good idea as far as what Honda gets out of buying Nissan. Sure, you could say maybe if they want a full-size SUV, they can take a version of the Armada. A few other little things here and there. You want to do a rear-wheel drive sports car. Maybe the Z could be a basis for, an S2000 or something. There's just, hardly anything. We got little crumbs here to go off of as far as what Honda gets out of this. I think the only thing possibly is, Nissan has been working on solid-state batteries, and they claim that they'll be ready around 2030. I think Honda is working on some as well, but I don't think theirs maybe are as advanced. So maybe, that's the big, carrot that's dangling in front of Honda that they want badly or something. I have no clue. I would love to be a fly on the wall with all this drama going on behind the scenes here. But so we will see what happens. Just have to wait and see. I'm not sure if there's any pressure to get this done before the end of the year or what. But honestly, I'm surprised that other Chinese companies that have been desperately trying to get into the States here, I'm surprised none of them have tried to take over Nissan and just buy the whole thing in cash. They have the money, it seems, or any other company for that matter, even Stellantis or some branches of Stellantis, buy some of the brands off of them, since they could use the money, and just put on that suit and then say, okay, we're Nissan now, or we're Maserati now, take your pick, and say, okay, and now we're going to just bring in our Chinese vehicles, slap your badges on them, build them in your factories with your manufacturing network, your dealer network. It's all just built, set, ready to go. It's really kind of surprising that something like that hasn't happened, especially for even a company like Mitsubishi would have been a starting point for a Chinese company, to take over that automotive division of Mitsubishi. So I don't know. I'm guessing there's good reasons why that stuff doesn't happen. I'm, not a business expert, but very interesting, that we're starting to see a little bit of this with Foxconn potentially, and we'll just have to see how it plays out. But very interesting to see all this drama. And for the last quick bit of Honda news here, they have teased two vehicles that will be debuting at CES in January here alongside its other new tech that they're coming out with. And they say these two vehicles will represent the next models in the Honda Zero series coming to the global market in 2026. The sedan still seems to be very concept-y, and I'm guessing it's the same as the saloon concept we already saw, maybe slight tweaks to it, but I think it's just the saloon concept again based on the back end. Maybe it is different though, I don't know. But the SUV is a new one there and is also very dramatic. I'm also skeptical though of this, is this even going to be remotely close to a production vehicle? I don't really see how, but I guess some design inspiration or something. But with these things actually coming to the market, in 2026, basically a little over a year away, you would think we'd see something closer to a production vehicle instead of these wild, far out concepts. But we will see. I mean, it'll certainly be a good, thing to draw people to the booth at CES, I guess. But seems kind of an odd choice there. But seems like, again, Honda's willing to spend money these days somehow. So anyway, though, moving on from Honda, finally, another vehicle that's coming in 2026 now is the Ram 1500 Rev. And so Ram announced this week that it's being pushed from sometime in 2025 until 2026, sometime in 2026 now. And that instead the Ramcharger will now take priority and get pulled forward to be the one that launches first due to overwhelming consumer interest, with Ramcharger ordering set to open in the first half of 2025 here now. And I mean, especially with the current stuff going on these days, this makes total sense. In addition to, I'm sure they do have pretty strong customer demand for it. But, EV sales growth is slowing. And, you look at how Lightning sales and Silverado sales, it's not, a super strong picture right now. And so it makes sense. Why rush the Rev, especially since, they're working out bugs and trying to really perfect all their other EVs. Ramcharger is exactly what everyone, I think, needs right now as far as, the truck market. you have the EVs already out there. Everyone that's wanted one already has one. Everyone else is buying gas, but I think there's a lot of people that are excited about this, range extender thing. It'll have over like 690 miles of range, I think they're saying for that. And, give people that, I think it's like 125 miles of electric range too. Show people you don't need to have 1,000 miles of electric range to be comfortable using it as an electric daily driver. And then you have that gas backup there, though, for those who do want to do all the other, long distance road tripping, towing, and all that. I think the Ramcharger is actually going to be a huge hit if it's executed well. And so I hope that it goes smoothly, but makes a ton of sense. And I'm glad to see that being pulled forward there. And hopefully that does help Stellantis, because we all know they need a win right now. One other big news thing for Stellantis here this week is that Dodge has announced that they've extended production of the Durango Hellcat and the Durango RT into the 2025 calendar year. We already knew that it was getting a 2025 model year, but we had assumed they were kind of churning them out right to the end of the year here. And now they're saying they're going to keep going in 2025. So this sounds just like, Jeep announced that the 2024 Wrangler 392 Final Edition isn't actually a final edition, because there will be another final edition in 2025. I don't blame them for it, because I think, they all were expecting this is the way it was going to go, was this is the actual end, and it turns out that it is not. So they're either betting on the most likely loosening up emissions regulations and the fact they'll probably be able to just pollute as much as they want here pretty soon. And it also could be a combination of that combined with the fact that they want to, probably use up the rest of the V8 components. Maybe there's some excess parts and inventory and stuff that they need to work through. And so even if they do get fines, potentially, it's worth taking that hit to, maybe clear out some of this remaining inventory instead of having a bunch of Hellcat motors sitting around in a warehouse or something. If they can, get these things in cars, maybe that's worth it as well. So we'll have to see. Just it is fun to see that these beasts will continue to live on a little longer. We will see how much longer, but very interesting to hear that. The other surprising thing, though, about 2025 Durangos here is that along with the 2025 Durango changes, the SRT 392 is no longer available. So, we have some good news up front, but the bad news is on the back end. Now you have the extremes of either 5.7 Hemi or Hellcat. No 6.4 in the middle anymore. And this one's a head scratcher to me, because I had assumed the 6.4 was the safest V8 in Stellantis, because that's still actively being used in the heavy duty Rams. I thought maybe 5.7 production could phase out, Hellcat production could phase out, because those aren't really used in other vehicles really anymore, aside from, again, Wrangler 392, and even that, though, that's 392. So again, 6.4 and everything. So I don't know why 392 is going away for Durango now. That just doesn't make any sense, and I feel like people would be kind of bummed about that. And sure enough, you go in the Dodge configurator and select 2025s, there is no 392 SRT anymore. So that's a shame, because those were great too, and so sad to see that going away. But now and at least those that want to drop $100,000 on a Hellcat, at least those people can still have that, as can the 5.7 fans. So anyway, though, moving on here, Porsche is still working hard on their electric 718 replacement, but according to Automotive News Europe, Porsche is well behind schedule on that car due to them constantly requesting adjustments from their supplier of the mid-mounted battery pack that the car is going to be using in an attempt to make that EV feel more mid-engined, which I think is actually a brilliant idea. Playing around with battery placement is a real cool way to differentiate the feel of these EVs going forward. I think Porsche is brilliant for trying this, but it sounds like they keep having to adjust stuff, and they're perfectionists at Porsche. They really want to perfect everything, maybe to a fault, but as a result, it's just sounding like this is taking longer to bake than they had hoped for. And I think this is a more understandable delay versus people that couldn't figure out software on Macan EV and stuff for the longest time. Thankfully, it doesn't seem like it's a software issue this time. It's just them really wanting to nail the feel, and I can't blame them for that. So I hope they take all the time they need. But this delay does mean, though, that with gas 718s ending production sometime next year in 2025 here, the 911 could be the only sports car in their lineup for a year or two, because this new one was supposed to arrive, I think, next year for the 718. Now it seems like maybe that could be 2026 I mean, who knows, maybe even later. I don't know how well behind schedule, just how bad that is. It's not super specific, but doesn't sound like, it's at least got to be a one model year bump, if not more. So we'll see. And so that same publication is also saying that the electric Cayenne was supposed to arrive in 2026, also might get delayed now as well. And so it's just all these EVs. It's just, man, it's just such a train wreck with all these car companies trying to figure out, what do we pull ahead? What do we delay? Can we keep our company in business? Can we keep factories open? It's just, man, it's so chaotic. I've been doing these weekly updates now for probably 12 years or more, and I can't remember a more chaotic time with more companies being in such a struggling state. It's just kind of crazy. And moving on to that, for the last news story here this week, Volkswagen Group also continues to struggle to keep factories open, and they've talked about how they most likely will have to close factories. They're still trying to keep them open. That hasn't been confirmed which way they're going with that yet, but Audi this week did decide to close a factory, their factory in Brussels, and it's closing quickly by the end of February, in fact. And sadly, this means the only vehicle that's built there, the Q8 E-Tron, along with its Sportback variant, will also be done at the end of February here. With those final cars being assembled on February 28th. And so this brings Audi's first mass market EV to an end. That was the very first one back in 2018, and it never sold super well in the States, it seems. But and it was 6 years old at this point, so now especially, not the freshest out there, especially with all their new EVs coming out now. But globally, they did sell almost 50,000 of these things last year. So, I mean, that's not bad, honestly. So I think it's still pretty solid there. And I actually spent a week with one last year in 2023, and I really enjoyed it. I actually even did a little bit of a short road trip in it, stopped for a quick charge stop, and it was a great road tripper. Really smooth, comfortable, so nice, the Q8. And so I'm probably one of the few people that is going to be sad to see that one go, because I think it was actually a little underappreciated, in my opinion. And so Audi board member and head of production that decided to close the factory said that the decision to close the Brussels factory is painful. Personally, it was the toughest decision I've ever had to make in my professional career. So, I mean, that really speaks volumes. Again, Volkswagen Group, I don't know about other parts of Volkswagen, but I know Volkswagen proper, they have said they've never closed a factory in Europe. So this is, a big deal that they're, having to close this one from Audi. And also this factory is notable because it was the world's first carbon neutral, high volume production plant in the luxury segment. A lot of qualifiers there, but it was just, a very high-tech factory, not some old rickety factory. This was carbon neutral, producing some really high-tech stuff, and so sad to see that factory is going away. They did try and find a buyer for the factory, but I guess so far they have had no luck in selling it. And so, yeah, but farewell to the Q8 E-Tron. Sadly, I don't think it'll be missed by many, but I think it was a good car nonetheless. And lastly, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Maran Motoring Club. So we didn't have any new members join this past week, but we did have Omar Ramirez, who was able to rejoin this week. And thank you so much for rejoining, Omar. I really appreciate that support, and it really means a lot. So thanks so much for rejoining. And for anyone else that'd like to rejoin or join for the first time, there's always join buttons here on the video page, on the channel page, and a link in the description. And you get all those membership perks that come with being a member, as well as that priority answering in the live stream. And lastly, I also want to say I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season here, and just great time with family, friends, whoever you want to hang out with, and I hope it's just a nice, relaxing time here as we wind down the year. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on all these things in the comments below. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming. Stay tuned next week for my final weekly update of the year, where I'll be covering all of my top reviews of the year and any big news that happens to come out here next week, if we do have any. Otherwise, just a wrap up on the year of reviews here. But yeah, thank you all once again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.